Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas. Today, we are jumping into one of the biggest, deepest mysteries of all, consciousness. It's the simple, intimate reality of your own existence, right? The feeling of being you. And yet, from a scientific standpoint, it is a complete and utter puzzle.
Okay, let's just dive right in with this question from neuroscientist Mark Solms, because it perfectly frames the problem we're up against. Seriously, try it for a second. Try to imagine a sunrise without anyone there to see it. It's almost impossible, isn't it? The very act of picturing it means you're there. We're trapped inside our own perspective. So how on earth do we step outside of ourselves to figure out what we are?
So, to even begin this investigation, we've got to put a name to this puzzle. There's a term that scientists and philosophers use to describe this massive challenge of explaining our own inner world.
It's called the hard problem, a name coined by philosopher David Chalmers. And this is the absolute heart of the matter. See, it's not about what the brain does, processing information, controlling your body. Scientists call those the easy problems. The hard problem asks, why does all of that complicated processing feel like something from the inside? Why aren't we just incredibly complex biological robots just operating in the dark? Why do we feel joy or the sting of sadness or see the color red?
Okay, our first clue takes us deep inside the brain, but maybe not to the part you'd expect. We're on the hunt for the source, the hidden spring of our awareness.
For the longest time, a lot of people, including a whole lot of scientists, have bought into what Mark Solms calls the cortical fallacy. The idea is that consciousness, our sense of self, must live in the most sophisticated, most evolved part of our brain, the cortex, the wrinkly bit on top where we do all our high-level thinking. But what if that's completely backwards? Solms argues that the most basic, elemental form of consciousness isn't complex thought. It's not about what you're experiencing, but simply that you are experiencing it all. That fundamental awareness is just pure, raw feeling. And get this, he traces that feeling not to the fancy cortex, but to the ancient, primitive brainstem. That's a part of the brain we actually share with reptiles and fish.
Now, this reframes the whole question in a really powerful way. Consciousness isn't some lofty, abstract mystery. It's a deeply practical biological tool. It's like a compass. Feelings, hunger, fear, pleasure, those are just the brain's simple way of telling us, moment to moment, if we're doing okay or if we're in trouble. It's a survival mechanism, pure and simple, rooted in the oldest part of our nervous system.
All right, let's move on to our next clue. Now, while the first clue looked for the source of consciousness inside the brain, this next idea completely flips the problem on its head. It asks us to look outside, taking us from the familiar world of biology into the truly strange realm of fundamental physics.
Just let that question sink in for a second. It challenges our most basic assumption. Pretty much everything we think we know is based on the idea that the 3 pounds of meat in our skull produces our inner world. But what if its job is completely different? What if it's more like a receiver than a generator? Physicist Danko Georgiev lays out these two totally opposite views. On the left, you've got functionalism, which is the standard view. You have unfeeling atoms in the brain that somehow magically arrange themselves to generate feelings. This leads you right into the brick wall of the hard problem. But on the right is reductionism, a really radical alternative. It says conscious experience itself is the fundamental thing that exists. The brain is just what that consciousness looks like when we observe it from the outside with our scientific tools.
To really get your head around this reductionist idea, think of it like this. The brain doesn't produce consciousness any more than a map of a mountain produces the actual mountain. The physical brain we can see and scan and measure, that's just the map. It's a representation. The territory, the actual real thing, is your inner experience itself.
The difference becomes crystal clear when you look at it this way. In reductionism, you see that the hard problem just dissolves. It vanishes. You don't have to explain how non-feeling stuff creates feeling, because you start from the idea that the fundamental bits of the universe are, in some very basic way, already sentient. So what this quantum perspective is really suggesting is that consciousness isn't some special trick our brains learn to do. It's not something that just pops into existence when matter gets complex enough. Instead, it might be woven into the very fabric of the universe itself, like space or time, an inherent ingredient of reality that our brains simply tune into and organize.
But what if this fundamental feature of reality isn't a gift? What if it's a curse? Our third and final clue takes a sharp turn, and it explores the dark side of awareness. We're shifting from the cosmic and the biological to something deeply and sometimes painfully personal.
Philosopher Aryan Vinod offers a totally different, much darker perspective. He argues that this incredible evolutionary tool, our self-awareness, has actually become our greatest burden.
Vinod's argument is that consciousness doesn't just show us the world, it divides it. It cuts reality up into categories: good and evil, self and other, purpose and meaninglessness. And in doing that, it tragically divides us from ourselves.
And this is where our amazing ability to reflect becomes a trap. The moment you become aware of yourself, you split in two. There's the one who lives, and there's the one who watches the living. And that internal witness, that observer, it's a relentless judge, creating this permanent internal conflict. We can't just be, we have to constantly watch ourselves being.
So this view suggests that our ultimate protection mechanism has tragically turned into an instrument of self-torment. It was designed to help us spot the predator hiding in the grass, but now it anticipates abstract fears, anxieties about the future, and existential dread. It's a tool that's just become way too sharp for its own good.
So, after all that, where does our investigation leave us? Well, we don't have a single neat answer, but what we do have is a compelling, multi-layered, and frankly mind-bending portrait of the mystery of who we are. When you put these clues together, you get this incredible, complex picture. We seem to be wielding a primitive survival tool, a tool that might be woven into the very fabric of reality itself, but which has become so powerful that it has created a permanent source of our own deepest suffering. The ultimate takeaway, then, isn't about solving the puzzle. It's about deciding how we're going to live with it. According to Vinod, it's not about finding comfort or an easy answer that makes us feel better. It's about bearing the weight of our fractured awareness with some integrity and choosing how to act even when the universe offers us no easy answers.
And so that leaves us with one final question, a question for you to reflect on. When you turn your awareness inward, when you really observe your own inner world, what do you see? A practical tool for survival? A ghost of the universe looking out through your eyes? Or an open wound that's just the price of being human? Perhaps, somehow, it's all three at once.